Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Comic Corner Classics as Non-Classic. This is episode number 1328 and Doubleshot number 1222. One DC trade, more Marvel trade. First up it is Batman versus the Joker. Now this is basically their various on and off fights since the 1970s. Surprisingly, they don't throw in Joker's first appearance in here, which I thought that was kind of weird. Yeah, they don't have any of his early appearances. It's mostly put from the 70s forward, which I thought was kind of weird. Yeah. Now, the issues they collect in this book are these following issues. We have Batman 251, which was his first Bronze Age appearance. 429 and 614. Detective Comics 475, 476. Batman Volume 2, number 40. And Batman the Robot, number 1. Now, all the issues are written by Denny O'Neil, Steve Englehart, Jim Starlin, Jeff Loeb, Scott Snyder, Matteo Castelli, and Brian Azzarello. The artwork in these issues are done by Neil Adams, Marcia Rogers, Terry Austin, the late Jim Aparo, Jim Lee, Mike DeCaro, Scott Williams, Greg Capullo, Danny Mankey, who's also the inker of the Scott Snyder run, and Katsuba Kamakali. And the cover art here, this is by Brian Ballard, the guy who did Killing Joke. Surprisingly, Killing Joke is not included in this one shot, in this graphic. Now, what I thought that was interesting. Now, what happens in these issues? Well, basically, first off, we actually have the first ever Bronze Age appearance of the Joker. Yes, this was his first Bronze Age appearance, and this is actually one of my favorite covers for Neil Adams. Now, this cover was not exactly spoofed by when Neil Adams knew that there was a month of variant covers where he did homages to his various covers. This one, surprisingly, was not included as part of those covers for some reason. I'm not really sure why. It just basically Batman versus the Joker, which leads into the two-parter in Detective Comics, which is part of the Strange Apparitions storyline, which involves Hugo Strange, who was dead at that point. Yeah, he got killed by Rupert Thorne due to the fact he found out about Batman being Bruce Wayne, and he tried to sell it, though he wouldn't give the identity away, so Rupert Thorne had him beaten to death, and of course Rupert Thorne himself basically later surrendered. Yeah, this is part of a storyline with Rupert Thorne where he apparently banned Batman from Gotham City, though it was later revoked thanks to Rupert Thorne going to jail. In the case of some of the other issues, 614 is part of the Hush storyline, which simply put has Batman versus the Joker again. Batman 40 was the final part of the Endgame storyline. Europa was the start of the Europa miniseries. Basically, was Batman teaming with the Joker to go across Europe to basically find a cure for a plague. Yep. But all these stories in here are really good. Give this book roughly a 9.5, but not a lot of talk about what comes to this one, but it's still really good. Alright, next up is The Death of Captain Marvel. Yes, this cover is taken from the first ever Marvel graphic novel released in 1981. Written and drawn by the awesome Jim Starlin. Now, this book does not contain just Marvel graphic number 1, which has Death of Captain Marvel. It also contains his first 3 ever appearances from Marvel Superheroes 1213 and Captain Marvel number 1. We also have issue 34, which was the debut of Neutro, the man who killed Captain Marvel, Marvel Spotlight 1 through 2, and of course the aforementioned Marvel graphic novel. Now, in the actual issues themselves, Captain Marvel number 1 was done by Stan Lee, and of course the artwork in this issue was done by the late Gene Colan. Yep. Now, Gene Colan and Stan Lee are the only people who work on this one. You also have Roy Thomas, Jim Stone, I believe he wrote the Death of Captain Marvel one shot, and I believe he also worked on the Captain Marvel issue. You also have Doug Moak and Steve Englehart. And aside from Jim Starlin and Gene Colan doing the artwork, we have Pat Broderick doing the artwork. This cover art here is done by, of course, Jim Starlin. The back cover artwork is done by Bob McLean, Jeff Kinn, and Chris Stammer. Now, the actual first 3 issues are basically his first appearance. Is simply put, now, this issue right here, Marvel Superheroes number 12, this was recently talked about on top of the 4th Wall last year as for Secret Order this month. He talked about this very issue. And it's great, though. Now, the thing is, this is part 1 of a 3-part story. Now, it's not only his debut, but also Yonson Wrong, one of his recurring bad guys. We also have a guest appearance in the storyline by Ronan the Accuser. And the storyline has the debut of Carol Danvers, who was the chief of security. Now, if you're curious, though, what was her first ever appearance in comics? Yeah, Carol Danvers, one of the most popular characters in comic books. And let's see if we can find it here. Basically, this is the first appearance of Carol Danvers. Here she is. Carol Danvers, the woman who later became Captain Marvel, and her first appearance is talking about this robot. Yes, if you're curious about this robot, this is the same robot that fought the Fantastic Four in its debut appearance. Yes, the very same Sentry robot was destroyed in the first issue of the Captain Marvel ongoing series. Now, Captain Marvel was the conclusion to this three-parter, which I at least praise the fact Marvel included this in here, because why not? It's the start of basically their run. We also first appearance of Yuna, who was one of Captain Marvel's many living lovers over the years. Now, in the case of more spotlight issues, it's simply put guest star appearance by Drax the Destroyer and Moondragon, which was really good. Now, Marvel Graphic number 1, which is this is an excellent one-shot. By far, out of all the Marvel Graphic novels, one of the best ones. It's got really good artwork. Like, wow. Like, this artwork is so, like, what do you expect from the 1980s? I mean, this is what the original cover looked like. Yeah, that's the original cover. Now, here's the opening first page you see. I mean, look how gorgeous this artwork is. Done by the awesome Jim Starlin, who still does artwork this very day. He still does this. Though it's not up to quality of this particular standard, but this is still really, really good. Yeah, and the death is handled really well. And then they mentioned the whole thing about... Now, in case you're curious, though, about this, and why in the world that in his first appearance, he wasn't wearing this very attire. Why did he start wearing this? Well, this was actually his military uniform. And yes, the center thing was a symbol for the Kree Empire. Though this costume has been used by a few people over the years. One was a character known as Kid Marvel, who showed up in the pages of Moon Girl Devil Dinosaur, wore the same exact attire. Now, you're probably curious, though, where did this look come from? The red and blue outfit with the star and the pinkish skin and the blonde hair? Because here's the thing, he's a Kree. Now, normally Kree are depicted with blue skin, and yet he's got peach skin. Now, he was turned into this look by the Supreme Intelligence due to his he choosing Earth over the Kree. So he transformed into this look with the negabands, which basically have been common thread for Captain Marvel over the years. The most recent appearance of negabands since his death was actually in the pages of Avengers, believe it or not, in the Mark Waid run. Yes, somehow they ended up in the negative zone, surprisingly. Yes. And if you're curious, so like, why in the world negative zone? Well, the negative bands basically were associated with Rick Jones, who became a supporting character in the Captain Marvel book prior to when the series was published back in the 70s. This was, I think, before Jim Starlin took over the book and added Drax the Destroyer to the lineup, well, as part of the cast. Carol Danvers was part of the initial cast of the book for the first 18 issues as a recurring character, until issue 18, where she got her powers and she got her own spin-off book, which lasted 23 issues because it can't due to low sales. And at one point, the Captain Marvel book was briefly canceled, or being briefly revived, or at least put on hiatus for a few years. And he popped up in Avengers during that period of time and participated in the Kree-Skrull War. But in the case of this overall, because this is all classic stuff, I give this book roughly a 10 out of 10. It's really freaking good. And I recommend people checking this out because it's just that damn good. Yep. So yeah, that's it for Cycle Review. Next review, a movie review talking about the very first Fantastic Four film released in theaters. I'll talk more about that in the movie review, okay? See you next video. Bye.